up is our math, and we're going to do this portion kind of together. I'm going to give some directions and kind of allow for you all to do it independently as well. So this is going to be me just kind of guiding you through some of these, but the expectation is that you can do these on your own, okay? So I'm going to give you just some directions and we'll see, how it goes, okay? So starting with number 1, for your math, we're kind of doing a review. We're going back, okay? We're looking actually at a multiplication problem here, okay? And so the multiplication here is using this place value chart strategy, and then it's using unit form and then standard form as the answer, okay? So essentially, what this is showing you is that 2 is identified by multiplying it by 5 ones. So if you can see one group of 5 ones here, that would be like 1 times 5, okay? And then if you see the second group here, that right there is 2 times 5. So you basically are just going to look at this total, all right? Well, I noticed that if I have 2 groups of 5, 1, 2, well, 2 groups of 5 is a 10. So the cool thing about this is it's actually a review, is that when we have 10 ones, we can actually bundle it and place it into the tens place right here, okay? So what this is showing me is that it's actually representing the answer as 110 now, all right? So that means that 2 times 5 ones is 10 ones, right? And we can kind of see that right there as we count all of the ones together, right? 1 group of 5 plus 2 groups of 5 gives me 10 ones, okay? So that's the unit form, and then they're asking for standard form. So by yourself, I want you to place the answer, what 2 times 5 is, right here on your own, okay? I'll give you time to do that. And then moving on to the second portion here of number 1, it's the same type of question. The only difference here is if you notice now we're in the tens place. So if I have 2 times the 5 tens now, earlier it was 5 ones, okay? But if I have 2 times the 5 tens, well then how many tens do I have? Well, I have 1 group of 5 tens. That's 50, right? Then I have 2 groups of 5 tens. How many tens is that total? Okay, go ahead and count them. Okay, if you said 10 tens as your answer, you're correct. Okay, so if 10 tens is the unit form, well, what's 2 times 50? 10 tens is equivalent to what? You want to write your answer right there on your own. Okay. Now, another thing that you could do is go through individually and count by tens. So just like over here, if we count, 1, 2, 3, we're counting by ones right here, right? But then if I come over here, now I'm counting by tens, since the place value chart says tens. So I could count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. What is that answer? That is what goes right here. Okay, I didn't give it to you, but I guided you there. So see if you can put your answer right now. Okay, and at any point, you pause and you take your time. Moving right along. Here we have a place value question. Which values are equivalent? Equivalent means equal to, okay? So if you want to imagine like this is a little equal sign right here, that might help, okay? Which values are equivalent to 20 hundreds plus 17 ones? Okay, it says choose all that apply. So there's going to be more than one answer here, okay? Now, let's go over here to A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, there's different ways that you see this number. Here, we have standard form. right? Standard form is what we use when we just represent the digits in standard form. Next, you see unit form here. Okay, unit form allows us to use the value of a number attached to its place value as a word. So 20 tenths. Well, how many tens are 20 tenths? You know, and it might be something that if you needed to, you could actually make a place value chart yourself here, okay? Just like they did kind of at the top. All right, we have another unit form here. Right? Another unit form here. Another unit form here. And then standard form right here. All right, so this is what I would suggest to you. If you're looking at 20 hundreds and 17 ones, how can I place that in a place value chart? Notice I have 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3. So if I have ones, of course, the smallest value that I could include here might be ones. Okay. So let's go with placing your ones place right here. Here's your ones place. Okay. Next, I would have the tens place, right? Bear with me here, guys. I'm using my keypad, so it might not be super neat. I will try my best, though. Next, I would have the hundreds place. But notice the value of 20 hundreds. Is that going to be staying in the hundreds place? Might be safe if you go ahead and use the thousands place. So I might need to extend that out here and then write the thousands place. So if you could plug in 20 hundreds and 17 ones in this chart, is there ways that you can group and make tens to move them into a different spot of the place value chart? Right? 20 hundreds, you can make 2 tens out of that. Well, if I can make a bundle of 10, well, then I can move it to the thousands place. So it's going to look like the thousands can be represented in this answer. All right? So I'm going to give you a hint. There's going to be 3 correct answers for number 2. Okay? So I'm going to make a note right here that there's 3 correct answers. Okay? I'll try my best to write this. I maybe have overestimated my abilities here. I'll just put 3 correct. All right, there are 3 correct answers in different ways that you can represent 20 hundreds and 17 ones. Okay, so that's what you're going to do on your own for number 2. Moving on to number 3. Okay, I'm using comparisons, greater than, less than, or an equal to. Right? So if I represent these in standard form, it's probably going to be easier to work with. For example, if I have 6 in the hundreds, I could rewrite that as 6 hundreds. Well, 51s gives me 5 in the tens place and 0 in the ones place, right? If I regroup. So that makes it a lot easier to compare 650 to 605, which we know 650 is greater than. So what I'm going to suggest is that you write these in standard form, okay? And again, standard form is that number form that we talked about like at the top, okay? It's just the standard form using the digits to make a number, right? So simply here, since this is expanded form, you can add them together to make a new number. What's 500 plus 10 plus 3 going to give you as a new number? All right, if you read 530, what number are you reading? Well, 530 looks like this. And it might be that you have questions. So I'm going to go ahead and give you that one, okay? But you're going to use greater than, less than, and equal to do number 3 here. All right, so you should have a symbol in each one, right? And I think for this math portion, I'm going to upload a picture of the answers so that, parents, if you're watching this, if you want to help guide your kiddos through, of course, I'm here for questions as well. But I'll post the answers so that maybe you can kind of have a good answer key to kind of go off of as well. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is rounding. This is a review, all right? Rounding's not too bad as long as you look for the place value that they're asking, right? So if I look at 26, well, if I'm rounding it to the nearest 10, then I use the tens place as my guide, right? We talked about this. If you need to use a vertical number line, right? And we look at the tens place. Oh, and Miss Schultz made a mistake. That is the ones place. I'm very sorry. Whoopsie. The tens place is this 2 right here. All right, disregard that. So I use that as my kind of baseline. So if I have 2 tens to start, well, the possibility of it rounding up to the next 10 would be 30. All right. And then my midpoint kind of helps me see, well, is it greater than the midpoint or is it lower than the midpoint? Well, the midpoint would be 25 because it's in between 20 and 30. Well, 26 is 1 greater than the midpoint, so it's closer to 30. So if I place 26 where it would go on a number line, that means that it will be correctly rounded to 30. All right? Or if you want to use the little phrase we've used in class, 5 or more, the number soars. Well, notice, 6 is 5 or more. So then the 2 soared. It became a 3. Right? Or 4 or less, the number rests. So let's say this 6 was lower than a 5 and it was a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. It would have rounded down to 20. All right? These are review, so this is just kind of like a little refresher for you, okay? Number or letter B, rounding to the nearest 100. Same concept, just the next up in place value, right? So here's the hundreds place. What's going to happen to the 4 and the hundreds? Okay, if you're using 400, is it going to be closer to 400 or to 500? Right, so of course, if it's 405, well, that is a long way from 500. So use that as a way to kind of judge it, okay? This 0 will give you the hint that you need right next door there. All right. Of course, I will always be available for questions too if you're stumped. Number 5 is addition, vertical addition. Super, super easy addition right here, guys, okay? All you need to do is set it up vertically, all right? So I have 177. You want to be very careful, and we always want to line those numbers up. This paper gives you plenty of space. You must show your work. Okay, and that's kind of that piece of integrity, making sure we're doing all of what we need to do to be successful in your own writing and in your own work, all right? So show your work. Ms. Wilkerson and I say that all the time. Show your work, right? How can you add without writing it down? This is very helpful. Okay, so you want to line up your ones, your tens, and your hundreds in this case, right? Now, let's look at 7 plus 4. What is 7 plus 4? Okay. Well, it's 11. I have to actually rebundle to the next place, right? So I'm placing that new bundle in the tens place. Now I can add these together. Right? So if you want to go ahead and complete that on your own, you can. This shouldn't be too bad, guys, okay? And same for B. You want to line them up just as we did for A. All right, finally, we have subtraction, and we're going to use a vertical setting them up. You want the biggest number on the top. All right, so to kind of model that for you, you want to give it a good space for each number, lining them up really nice and neat. Now notice 6. Can I take 7 away from 6? Well, no, right? 7 is too big. More on the floor, you go next door to get some more. I use this as a way to get more ones, right? So I take a 10 and I rebundle it into the ones, making this a 16. Now I can subtract the ones place. Once I'm done with that, though, look, can I take 8 from 3? No. I'm going to have to go again next door. More on the floor. Go next door to get some more. Okay. So we'll see if you can get that done as well. B, notice there's zeros here, guys. Ooh, that's very messy. Sorry. Now, if I have multiple zeros, I know in my class we talked about how it's kind of like a domino effect. I cannot take 2 from 0. If you hold up a fist of no fingers, using your fingers to help, can you take 2 fingers away? Well, no, I have 0, right? Well, if I was to go next door, oh no, I don't have enough. So I have to go again and borrow from the hundreds place, so it becomes a domino effect. This becomes a 6, so I get more here to become a 10. Well, this tens place isn't going to help me yet until I get more in the ones place to subtract, right? So I cross this out to make it a 9 so that I now have enough to subtract the ones place, right? So now I can subtract and do 10 minus 2. That gives you 8, right? And then, of course, continuing on, you can take 9 from 9, and you can take 6 from 5. Okay. All right, that concludes pretty much what you need to do for show work. We have a little sprint. These are fun. So if you have like a little device that you can grab, I always give 2 minutes in class, okay? 1 minute as a challenge, but 2 minutes is primarily what we do in class. So this is a sprint, okay? Parents, kiddos should be pretty familiar with a sprint. It's a timed, just kind of like a timed test to see how many they can get in that given time, all right? They don't have to finish. It's just kind of like a challenge. So this is asking for the midpoint. So the midpoint is in the middle of the number, right? So if I half 10, the midpoint is 5. If I half a 100, the midpoint is 50. So you'll notice earlier when we did that kind of rounding, all right, if I was to go back up to the top, we use the midpoint in our rounding here too, okay? So that should be a terminology that kiddos are really familiar with. All right, so that midpoint is in the middle of 2 numbers. So then if I scroll back down here, what's the midpoint between 0 and 1,000? Well, that would be 500, okay? And 5 is always that lucky number for a midpoint. All right, so see how many you can get done in 2 minutes. And that is concluding our math portion, all right? Again, I will be available on Talking Points for questions, but this is kind of just to help as a visual, as I know many of us don't have Chromebooks, so YouTube can be helpful. All right, guys, good luck.